And Pakistan go down to the Kiwis in the opening game of the Champions Trophy. Welcome to the shiny side. I'm your host, Faris, and we have joining us Khurram once again. Khurram, welcome to the show. How did it feel after yesterday's game?
Thanks, Faris. It seems like I'm the one person you find after crappy losses, huh? I suppose this is not as bad as the USA,
No,
but
no, this is nothing compared to that.
bad way to start the tournament, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true. But bad, not a great way to start the tournament. I mean, I thought, we started well, just let the game meander for far too long. And New Zealand really took advantage of it. And then just the batting, my goodness. It was like we were back in the 90s, just I don't know what was going on right at the beginning. So quite disappointed overall. And with, a key match coming up, it's not a great position to be in.
yeah. I mean, to be honest, I saw the schedule before we even started and said, hang on, if we lose the first game, suddenly the India game becomes a must win. And then as there isn't enough pressure on us anyway, right? And that's completely playing out. But yeah, I guess there's a lot of places, a lot to kind of take apart yesterday, right? But I guess starting off, the selection of the 11 wasn't the surprise, I guess, given, I mean, we've spoken about the squad at length or the flaws in this, but given the squad we had, I guess Haris coming in for Fahim made sense. I guess, did you have a bone to pick with the 11 as such?
Not really. I mean, look, a lot of people are not too happy about the fact that we're playing, one specialist spinner. I'm pretty happy with the two part-timers, honestly speaking. I think bowling generally is not our issue. It's the batting and the
Yeah,
consistency. And so having both Salman and Khushdil gives us a little bit of depth. And, Khushdil sort of proved his worth yesterday.
yeah, yeah,
So not really, no, no, no. Look, Faris, out of the team that we went into this tournament with, I think that was a reasonable
yeah.
starting 11.
Agreed.
You can
I mean,
argue if you could have picked.
you can probably really like argue about three or four guys in this 15, but the 11 from within the 15 was fine. Uh,
Yeah.
and I guess coming to the toss, Rizwan spoke about how we want to chase because there's dew. No dew showed up, not in time at least. Uh,
Yeah.
again, you won't say that's an outrageously bad call or anything because, generally speaking, I think we do chase better. A lot of our recent wins have come chasing. So again, I guess no fault with that call in my view. How do you look at it?
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing I do question is like, do we just look at sort of past matches when we think about whether there's going to be dew or not? Or is there someone who understands weather patterns, what
Yeah,
actually causes dew versus not? Because
yeah.
granted, till like 10 days ago, I know there was a fair amount of humidity. I don't know if someone, and I'll come to why I don't know if we do the meta-analysis needed for games in another second. Another point, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But based on the information Rizwan had, yes, I think it was
Yeah,
a right call.
yeah. So I guess getting into the game itself, and let's look at the bowling first, right? So would you say what kind of pitch was it, right? So we saw 350 being scored and chased down the other day, and then in another game in Karachi, we saw 240 being scored by Pakistan. New Zealand didn't completely run away with it. So my sense was that for this track, 320 was probably perhaps 20 above par or so. It wasn't an outrageously brilliant score, but it wasn't necessarily a 350 track where we kind of really did well with the ball, I think. So how do you look at
Yeah,
the
I
pitch?
think I would have to agree with you. I think this certainly wasn't a 350 pitch, and the ball wasn't really coming onto the bat. It was
Yeah,
stopping a little bit, and you could see that batsmen really need to get themselves in. If you look at New Zealand's scorecard as well, there's like zeros and tens, and then there are two centuries, and then
yeah,
obviously crazy 50.
yeah,
I think it I mean, I would have loved anything below 280, to be honest.
yeah,
That's what I was looking for. 300 also. 320 seemed a little
yeah.
bit too much.
Yeah, and I guess the thing is, we come to a bowling, right? So we had them what? We had them at 3 for 67 or something around that sort. But I think the biggest issue was, I mean, Shaheen didn't get a wicket early on, that's fine. But from 67 for three in the eighth over and the 13th over, we didn't get a wicket for another, what, 25 odd overs, right? And I think that's the real problem where I think in these days in ODIs, most teams, doesn't matter who they are, If they have wickets in the end, they will take you for those 10 run per over, right? It's as simple as that. You can't contain teams in the end. You need to keep taking wickets. And unfortunately, after the first day, we didn't take a wicket for the longest time. So, I mean, you could say, I mean, is it the fifth ball up? But I feel like the fifth ball up comes later. I think it's much more about the first four, what they can deliver at this point, which is a bit of a concern.
No, I think that's spot on. And I was just thinking I really would love to look at Pakistan's ODI middle over bowling performance. Historically, it just seems that we lack a punch
Yeah.
between 50 and 40. And I think that just played out again.
Yeah.
Um, we've been complaining about Shadab in the past, Osama Mir when he came in, same thing, like just not being able to get enough wickets, and that played out again. I thought New Zealand batted well.
Yeah.
What I really appreciated of their batting, which was completely missing in the second half, is turning over the strike.
Yeah.
There were the dot ball percentage was even when they weren't scoring to, getting a lot of boundaries. The dot balls weren't as many as certainly not as many as
Yeah.
Pakistan. So they kept ticking the scoreboard over, and that's what you need to build a platform.
Yeah, I was in the stadium, right? So generally speaking, I'd say from the third wicket till about 25th or over, it felt like Pakistan was doing really well. But when we looked at the scorecard, you're like, hang on, they're still getting some runs. So it didn't feel like they were getting so many. And like you said, it wasn't a lot of boundary, but much more turning over the strike, which kind of kept them going. And again, yesterday, Latham at the press conference said that we're pretty happy because everybody we think has got runs so far. And I looked at the scorecards and I'm like, hang on, Latham really has, and neither has Young. And those are the two guys who actually went ahead and got hundreds for them. So not only was it good for the yesterday, but it's for the tournament. Generally speaking, I feel like everyone has now scored runs in Pakistan in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I New Zealand was one of my dark horses before the tournament. The way they've played, I think in India recently, against Pakistan, against South Africa, they come ready for these big tournaments, and lo and behold, here they are. They've got a plan, they've got a strategy, and each person is executing, knowing what their plan
Yeah.
is. So it was quite an impressive performance.
Yeah. I think we'll come to the batting in a minute, but just the last point on the bowling, right? So a lot of people are talking about how we're doing things differently, what we did in the last few series versus South Africa and Australia. But the reality with the ball, we essentially have the same structure and the same guys even. The difference is that in conditions like South Africa and Australia, our seamers were way more effective and they got those wickets. So if you remember, very often Rizwan barely went to the fifth bowler because they had teams down like 5 and 7 down and never became a factor. But here, unfortunately, in our conditions, our bowlers are just not as effective, and this is something which we need to, I guess, figure out how to crack now.
Yeah, that's very true, Faris. I think maybe our this current team is better suited for faster pitches than
Yeah,
our own homegrown pitches.
yeah,
And we don't really want to be testing things out at this during a tournament. Certainly, I can't remember in the last few games any game where we sort of really had to bowl till the end. We were sort of getting like by the
yeah,
40th over, we
yeah,
were in a really dominant position. The thing that I was most upset about in the bowling, by the way, was the fact that because of a slow over rate, we had only four in the circle in
yeah,
the last two overs.
yeah,
In this day and age, it's just
yeah,
unconscionable. Like with all the coaching support, all the knowledge that you have,
yeah,
just someone needs to be watching the stream and they would know that you're behind
yeah,
the
yeah,
over rate, right?
yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
And
And that's the kind of
so
thing that tournament.
I was in the stadium. We didn't have a lot of information, but the one thing we had between the over, this massive timer, mainly for the players to see, right? And we were noticing the Kiwis when they were bowling, they were in place after 30 seconds. We were dawdling
Yeah.
in, like taking our 50, 55 seconds to actually get into our zone. So there was a clear difference there. But you're right. I mean, this kind of stuff, which I mean, you can't really blame anybody else for, right? Uh, I guess coming to where a lot of the criticism lies, right? Coming to the batting. So I want to make a point before we get into specific individuals and how we played yesterday, right? So recently, our batting was looking like it's got the right structure. We had Saim and Abdullah Shafiq at the top, and then we had Babar, Rizwan, Salman, and Kamran Ghulam at six, who even, by the way, got a man of the match in a game against South Africa. And so when Saim goes out, instead of getting a replacement for Saim, we kind of rejig the entire thing. So we move Babar to open, and Babar's had the struggles of we'll get to those, but he had 350s in the last series against South Africa. We move Babar to open where he's never scored 100 before. We get Kamran Ghulam to bat at 3, where he had some success early on at number 6. And then we get South Shakil coming in at 3 and opening. He's never opened in his even in his list A career, let alone for Pakistan. So I feel like before we even get into these individuals, this just seems like we haven't given people the best chance of success based on how we set up. And just to replace one person, perhaps get one new opener, we've kind of rejig the whole thing, even though it was seemed to be working. Is that a unfair assessment of mine, or is that how you look at it too?
No, I absolutely agree with you. I think everybody, I mean, by the time you hit a major tournament, everyone should have practiced their role, know their role.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
look at the Kiwis again, right? Rachin Ravindra went out, the entire batting lineup didn't go for a toss.
yeah,
They tweaked what they had to tweak. Young came in, and pretty much everything else was consistent and stable. So, look, the timing of it, I don't agree with. Now, having said that, I think the what they're trying to do here, which I do agree with, is just try to keep a left-right combination going, which I think is actually an underrated
yeah,
skill or trick to use in games, right? I think Dhoni was someone who really focused on it,
yeah,
and if you bowl at all, you don't want to be changing sort of your line
yeah,
constantly as people take singles. So yeah, not the greatest idea to do it now. Generally, not don't fully disagree with the thought process though. The thing that I think sort of held us back was very clearly the dot balls, right?
yeah,
I'm okay with starting circumspectly. I think New Zealand showed us a good example of that, but they were rotating the strike.
yeah,
And I mean, our batsmen need to back themselves to be able to
yeah.
nudge and nurdle singles, which they just did not do. I think what 25 overs of dot balls, if I'm not wrong, something along those lines.
Yeah, yeah.
I was reading somewhere. It's
I
just
think 100 of the first 140 balls were dot balls, something crazy like that. And
unbelievable, right?
in terms of, so again, I guess one thing that we did get unlucky with yesterday was Fakhar getting injured, obviously, right? Like Fakhar's probably been the most important white ball batsman in my view
Yeah, but I don't
for
know
the
if
last.
sorry to interrupt. I don't know
Yeah,
if I'd call that unlucky, right? Fakhr has a history of injuries. This is
true.
why he was out of the side.
Yeah,
If you actually ask around in cricket-related circles, as the news goes, he does not rehab properly, as he should. So in a way, I feel like we had it coming.
yeah.
Unlucky. I would say we were unlucky with Saim. I think Fakhr, I don't know if it was unlucky. This
I
happens way
mean,
too often to call it luck.
yeah, I mean, I generally do feel like, a lot of when people get injured, yeah, it's not as simple as, hey, you're unlucky, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, which we have no
Yeah.
visibility on, right? So there's a reason why some teams and some players get injured more than others. But
Yeah.
again, so anyway, either way, that ended up being a big blow. Now, I in my mind was thinking maybe we should send Rizwan into open, because again, like I said, Saud is a bit of a duck in front of a headlight kind of situation. I feel like Rizwan
Yeah.
obviously opens in T20 cricket, so perhaps he would be more suited. And I get the left right combination point you have, very valid, but I think that probably comes after somebody who's suited to that point. So no great option there. But how did you make that see the Saud opening call?
Yeah, not great. And then on top of that, to send Fakhr in so early when he was
Yeah,
injured, and it really made it even harder to rotate the
yeah,
strike when
yeah,
you already had started out with like dot ball after dot
yeah,
ball. So just a couple of decisions in the top
yeah.
order, you know.
And on that point, right? So I mean, the way tends to play early on, especially, there's a lot of twos and threes and so on, right? And I think with
Yeah.
Fakar coming in, not taking those, not. I mean, we'll come to Babar itself and his lack of intent, but I think that kind of further stifled the situation, right? Because Fakar couldn't really run, and he wasn't even getting enough boundaries to compensate for the lack of running, to be honest, right? So he finished with a strike rate was 60, 70 odd, not what he typically ends up with, and it just kind of, I guess, brought the innings to, it gave the crowd some cheers, and I was there, so we enjoyed it. But it definitely brought the innings into a bit of a standstill also.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it was just, I think this is also now historically, I think what we've seen with our captains is, when something goes wrong, their ability to think sort
Yeah,
of in the moment is really found wanting. Like, I really, like Cummins, man, I don't think he'd be making these calls. Yeah, I don't agree with the way we went about the chase
yeah,
at all. Look, I would have much rather gone aggressive, right? Get one of your hitters if you must from
yeah,
down the order and say, chalo, theek hai, jao and play your natural game and let's see if we can.
yeah,
That's what Fakhr's role is. Let's
Yeah.
keep that role. Let's keep the overall strategy going.
Send in
Um,
an Akshar Patel equivalent, whoever that may be, right? Like that kind of thing. Yeah.
you know who has the highest strike rate in the Pakistani 11, by the way? The number 11. A
Really?
strike rate of one. Yeah, yeah. Strike rate
Nice.
of 155, average of 28, but that's because he's only gotten out once in a game.
Hmm.
Not saying
Yeah.
we should open with him,
Of course, of
but
course.
everybody else is 88 to 90. And you're just like in this day and age, I mean, it's
Yeah. And I guess we have to come to the meat of the matter, right? Which is the lack of intent, especially from Babar, also to some extent from Saud and Rizwan. What does that come down to? I mean, again, like even on his poor days when Babar struggles, I think the issue we've all had with Babar recently is he looks good and he gets out for 20 or 30. But yesterday he just was struggling to hit the ball. And I think, and to be fair to the Kiwis though, you have to give them some credit because if we look at Babar's record the last couple of years, his strike rate against the spin coming into him is actually about 60 odd. It's much better than the ball turning away. Now, if you didn't have that level of stat, you would just say, hey, he's a right-handed, let's get a Santner on, but they kept the two offies on. And again, they do their homework. The Kiwis don't miss out on such stuff, right? So it
yeah,
was
yeah.
bang on strategy, and Babar had no answer. I mean, how do you even explain that? I was in the stadium and I was struggling to make sense of it.
Yoka, I mean, Babar has just been unpredictably predictable, in the last year. So I think he's lost a little bit of his confidence. Um, I would argue that part of it has to do with the team strategy that they have for Babar, right? And what I would love to do, Faris, for the rest of the tournament or whatever, and is just tell Babar, forget playing your game. We want you to go out and play aggressively. Try to get to a strike rate of 140, 150 from the get-go. And you know what? If you get out, you get out. Because this isn't working. I think he's playing the sort of the role on that, the entire team is going to bat around them. When like a Salman Agha comes off, fine. When a Fakhr comes off, fine. But I think it sets the entire team back so far because the
But
strike
also,
rate is
if you look at his recent innings, he hasn't batted like this. So like he scored 20s and
yeah,
30s, but they've all been the strike rate's been in the 85, 90 to like 110. In fact,
yeah,
at a game against
yeah,
New Zealand, he made like what 24 of like 19 or something, right? So it's not like this is
yeah.
how he's been batting lately. So again, is it the ICC tournament pressure coming back on, or I don't know what is going on? Like it made absolute, and I know
Yeah.
he's been having a poor time, but this was just even by his recent standards, it didn't make. Like I said, I can't explain it, so I don't know where it came from. Like
I do think I think like there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders. I can't imagine how hard it is. I appreciate the fact that he told everyone, "Don't call me king. Dekha jayega when the career is over." Um, I think we need to work on getting pressure completely off of his shoulders. Right, just get him. I'm not again. I don't want him to play his natural game. His natural game is also too slow nowadays for T20 and ODI. Tell him to go and play aggressively, and whatever happens, happens. And
and
especially now with Fakhr gone, Imam coming in, I
the
mean,
thing
if
is,
they both play their natural
yeah.
game and one plays their natural game, then there is no winning for Pakistan as far as I'm concerned.
Remember, the thing is, if you think about it, right, we were chasing 320. We didn't need anyone to score at 140. Even if Babar was scoring like what 50, 40 or 50 balls, that would have been good enough, I think. Because then it's easy to catch up. So, which is how he typically bats. And until a couple of years ago, do you know Pakistan had the highest share of like the top three contribution in ODIs? Imam, Fakhr, and Babar. They were all scoring heavily
Yeah.
and at a fair clip. Like they weren't
Yeah.
scoring at 120, but they were scoring at 85 plus, right? Which is all right if you have other guys. If you got guys a base. So I'm not sure. Again, his game has regressed. His confidence has certainly been shattered. And again, like I said, if not, we weren't chasing 390, we were chasing 320. So run a ball or close to that is good enough. You don't need to be at 150, which is the I guess the dilemma here. But anyway,
Yeah, yeah. I know what you're saying. My whole thing is, man, I like my bar right now is Rohit Sharma, right? It doesn't matter how many runs he's scoring, but he sets up the game for India in such a
yeah,
beautiful way. Even today, just getting out of the blocks in
yeah.
such a way that the pressure is off the rest of the team. And if there's one player who has that ability to take the game away from a batting perspective for us, it's him. And I just want him to therefore
And,
play sort
and
of
he's made
fearless.
that switch, right? Like he didn't bat this way until a couple of years ago. After that
Yeah,
T20 World Cup in Australia, where they lost the semi-final to England, that's when he's made the switch. And of course, I mean,
that's right.
I'm not just going to put it down to a player, but like I think as a team structure, as a cricket fraternity, they've backed him. They want to play a certain way, and the captain is empowered to play that way, regardless of consequences
Yeah,
in the short run, right? And that's why that's how you get someone playing like that. So I mean, I think it's an overall. I think cricket structure, coaching staff, kudos to everybody for letting him play in that fashion, and it's paying off for them. And he's not getting those
yeah,
big hundreds anymore, but India is winning more. That's
yeah,
the reality, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
That is indeed. And that's what I think we need Babar to stop. I don't think Babar worries about it, but as a team, I think we need to
yeah,
let him feel comfortable that, look, your average doesn't matter, strike rate matters. That's what he needs to focus on, and from the get-go, and not look to go so slow in the beginning that he'll make it up. That's what
yeah.
happened. There was no way he was making it up yesterday.
I thought Salman Ali Agha once again played a decent knock. I think it
Yeah,
was again slightly. So he's been really strong against spin. Does struggle slightly, not as fluent against pace. And I think it was given that he had kind of got us somewhat back into the game, or he looked like he was doing that. First over
mm.
of pace, short ball, and he just tried to go for it, and he was knocked out. So again, I think would have been better shot selection in that moment from him. But I think he
Yeah.
probably realized that he just had to go for everything by then.
That's the thing. Faris, by then, I mean, he didn't have many options, right? He had to play aggressively. He had to not just be picking bad balls. And really, if you look at the 350 chase versus this game, that was the difference.
Yeah,
Because we went fast enough in the beginning, even though we were chasing 350, the middle overs, we could actually play the game that comes more naturally to us.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that seems to be the strategy that is working for teams in ODIs right now. I just don't know why we haven't sort of been more
yeah.
consistent
Yeah.
in going with that strategy as well.
This, I think, finishing up on the batting. I thought I think Khushdil had a good game with the bat for sure, and I think
Yeah,
we spoke about this on the show before that his selection came out of nowhere, absolutely. But given when he was dropped within in ODIs, at least he had a few decent scores. But I think he got his highest career score yesterday, so well done to him. But there was a lot of
yeah,
criticism on him. I'm not sure if Tayyab Tahir is international material. I don't think even on like with a lot of other guys are criticizing, but I think it doesn't seem like Tayyab on his best day is a top six in an international side. But that's just my perhaps harsh criticism, but that's how I see it.
I feel like it's a little early for that from my in my humble opinion. A lot of times uh, players don't bring their natural flair in the early games because they're so nervous in international cricket. I mean, you look at Saim, first few games, it
Yeah,
didn't feel like Saim was fit for international
yeah,
cricket. And then it's actually when he let loose, when what it felt like he stopped trying to play international cricket and started to play his
yeah,
game,
yeah, yeah,
that he really started to
yeah.
flourish. And perhaps we need some. I do feel with a lot of people that come in into international cricket in the beginning, they need to be allowed to play their own game. And you know
Yeah.
what? If they get a few times, they need to be given
Yeah, I
cover.
think with Tayyab, I feel like I haven't seen even with Saim, he was doing it at the PSL level. Even at the PSL level, I feel like he hasn't been strong enough. But here and especially when there's Kamran Ghulam in the squad, who we leaving out, he scored a pretty. He's done well in a couple of knocks, and I feel like he's probably a good guy to have at six. And it's not like
Yeah.
Tayyab bats or anything either. And Kamran bowls a bit also, by the way, so he can bowl a bit of fields with leg spin. So yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
So
No,
I guess
good option. You're right.
yeah. Moving on to so India, we know won in Dubai. Moving on to the India-Pakistan game on Sunday, which somebody on the show today will be there for, and it won't be me. So you flying in. Hopefully, you have some expectations. I guess before we get into the game itself, so the game is in Dubai, and the way the tournament's set up, India knows exactly where they're playing all their matches, which again is a bit of an advantage. They've picked five spinners and three quicks, unlike everybody else in the squad
Mhm.
because they're playing in a different country, literally speaking. Now, in India,
Yeah.
in Dubai, there have been about, I think, 38 or 40 odd ODIs, only three scores of 300 plus. So I don't think it's really the same kind of high scoring game. We saw Bangladesh score 230 today, and India, it wasn't a walk in the park for them. They were, I think, at 160 for four at some
Yeah.
point. Shubman Gill scored his slowest 100 of his career, 100 of 130 balls. So it's almost like a Babar Azam kind of strike rate. So, anyway, so how do you see? Yeah, I mean, other than that, India is obviously in great form. There's no question about it. This may be the biggest gulf we've seen between quality with India and Pakistan. How do you look at the game?
Mm. Nervously, my friend. I think it's rather daring for any Pakistani fan to go and watch this game right now, considering, like you said, the gulf between the two teams. But look, I feel with an India-Pakistan game, anything can happen. There have been so many stars that have been made in these games. Tayyab could come out and like become a household name. So I think a lot of things can happen. What I'm hearing is that Imam is being brought back in
Yes,
for
Imam's already in the squad for Fakar. Fakar's out of the tournament. Yeah,
yeah, which is sad, but I think it's the right call. I
yeah,
think Imam has been doing quite well. I think it's better than bringing in someone who hasn't necessarily played in big games.
yeah.
So I'm excited about that. I think we have the bowling attack, by the way, to tackle this batting lineup.
Especially in Dubai, perhaps more than Pakistan.
I actually agree. I mean, if I had a
Mhm.
choice in terms of the type of pitches to decide where to play them, I think Dubai would actually be favored by me compared to some
Yeah.
of the
I mean,
pitches that we
I
have.
would play them in South Africa, but yeah, Dubai is not a bad option after that.
Yeah. So I am hopeful. I think, look, we'll have to play one of our best games. India really is a strong side, and I think Pandya really. I think we've talked about this as well as a fast bowling all rounder. He really, adds that balance, and that's something that
Yeah,
we've been missing. And until we get that, I think we're slightly short of being world class.
yeah,
I think Afridi will need to strike early, before Rohit takes the game away. I think that's going to be an important battle up front, and there is some history in that battle as well.
of course.
Um, I think how the game begins is going to be incredibly critical. So if one team sort of like really puts their foot to the throat of the other, I think, and especially if that's India doing it to Pakistan, I think it's going to be quite hard to
Yeah,
recover.
yeah, true. Yeah, I think if you look at India, right, so they're both batting at order in the top six is pretty much the same as the last World Cup. Rishabh Pant
Yeah,
can't make the 11. Jaiswal is not even in the squad. Their bowling looks a bit different. There's no Bumrah. Now, I know Shami got a 5 wicket haul today, but Shami, before the tournament, has only played 3 ODIs in the last year and a half because he was coming back from injury. So let's see how he does. They've got Harshit Ranak somehow made it to the 15 and the 11 today. He's only played three
yeah,
ODIs before this tournament. So, but he seems to be doing well as well. I think interesting to see that against Bangladesh, the Indian spinners could only get 2 wickets, and they were both Afsar Patel in a single over back to back. So, does that mean that Bangladesh kind of batsmen did let them through? And I'm not surprised in saying that. I feel like Bangladesh probably plays spin better than we do. But
hmm
or did the Indian spinners not get it right on that track? I don't think we know the answer
yeah.
right now, but
Look,
it'll be interesting.
yeah, no. So I thought, India really had them by the jugular and then really let them off the mat.
Yeah,
And Bangladesh made a match of it and got the wickets on the other end as well.
yeah,
And one simple catch of Rahul, I think that was dropped. If that had been taken, I think it could have been a close game.
yeah,
So
yeah,
catches, matches. So I agree with you. I think with Bumrah gone, there is an opportunity
yeah,
for our batting. I do think we've seen these spinners. I think historically Kuldeep is someone who's done quite well against us.
yeah,
So if I were the team, I'd sort of watch out for him. And really try to take on the rest of the bowlers, or not take on, but at least not be as
yeah,
circumspect as I was
yeah,
with
yeah,
Kuldeep.
yeah. And I guess the big question now, so what 11, how would you change the 11 for this game? So again, we have no Fakhr at the top. Imam is available as is Usman Khan and as is Kamran Ghulam. How would you structure the batting lineup? Any thoughts? I'm assuming you'll go with the same last four, but how would the
Yeah.
batting look different?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are two players that would come into contention, right? For me, Usman, and Imam. I don't think I would continue with Tayyab. I would continue with most of the middle order. I don't think they're moving Babar from the opening position after
Yeah,
just deciding to make it, go forward with it. So, Usman has a little bit more experience because of history in the UAE as well.
that's true.
Um,
In a different format
so
though, but yeah,
Sure. I just feel like
I didn't think of that, but yeah, that's a valid point.
yeah, I think that'd be interesting. I think it would be a little. What I think will happen is Imam will come in and open the batting with Babar, and I don't think they're going to make any other changes.
Yeah,
I do think they should give serious consideration to Usman as well. So that's my expectation,
yeah,
and
uh,
I would probably actually, to be very honest, also probably go with Imam. I thought Imam probably should have
yeah.
been in the 50 in the first
So
place.
I mean, I think we needed an opener for sure, which whoever you picked. So I think Imam is the best option right now. And for me, like I agree with that. I would go with Imam at the top with Babar. They won't change that now. And I feel like somehow I really would like to South to come maybe at 4 or 5. I don't know how to change that because I feel like South is probably a really good playoff spin, as you've seen in the test matches at least.
It's
And
true.
given that this will be a slightly lower scoring game and a lot more spin, perhaps, I feel like
Yeah.
him batting to the middle overs could be quite valuable. Also, given all the with Jadeja and Akshar Patel, I feel like a left-hander he could be very effective against those guys. So again, let's see
I,
how we utilize that. But
I think that's a very, very valid point. I do agree. And I think one could even consider, again, juggling the order all the time is a little bit challenging. But, I think Rizwan would also be an interesting person to potentially bring up the order.
yeah, yeah,
Again, I like to see captains leading from the front, frankly speaking.
yeah.
Um, I would have liked to see him sort of really lead this team
I
at
mean,
this point.
a lot of people, the discussions on social media on Rizwan should have stepped up yesterday and opened the batting, given that he's done that way more times than say South. But anyway, we've spoken about that. So yeah, I guess what's a good target score for both teams? I mean, if you bat first, this is Dubai. 300 is not scored often. The last time I was scored was 2019. I mean, I
I
think
mean,
if
I
Pakistan's
would.
like, go on.
Look, I think to me, a pass score is still 250, 260. And I think anything around 280, 290, I think a team would be reasonably happy with.
Yeah,
The way batting goes right now, I don't think that's, if one person really gets going, really 300 is a given. So, yeah, I mean, I would love to chase actually. I'd love to like get bowl first and try to get some early breakthroughs. I think in Dubai also chasing is a little bit easier. So that's what I would hope for. I think if India's
yeah,
batting first, they will want to get 280
yeah.
at a minimum. And Pakistan, if we keep them to 260, 250, I think we'd be
Yeah.
reasonably
I,
really
I was
happy.
going to say that. Yeah. So I feel like if Pakistan chasing, I think 250 to 60, anything more, generally speaking, it becomes trickier. And this is Dubai where you don't really score this big score. So yeah, I think 250 to under 260 would be the aim. And then if we bat first, yeah, 280 is what I would like on the board for us to have a
Yeah.
decent shot at the game, I guess. And you're right. I guess both teams would prefer chasing. And again, how they work, figure out the due stuff, I don't know. But I think looking at the ground tonight, so the layman way of doing it is just see the last two nights and see how that plays out. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure if there was much due today in the Bangladesh game, but
Hmm.
I didn't really catch that
Yeah.
second innings there. But anyway,
Yeah.
okay, good stuff. Predictions?
Oof. Um, I mean, it's hard to go against Pakistan, honestly. Just as a fan who's going to be there,
Uh,
I'm really, really, really hoping and praying for well-rounded performance. I think it's going to be a
yeah,
tight game if Pakistan is to win it. So that's what I'll vote for. So the other option is India with a landslide, but
yeah.
I'm hoping for Pakistan a close win.
Yeah, and just a small point on as somebody who's been again following cricket for a long time, I feel like it was fantastic to actually see international cricket come back to Pakistan, and the fact that after 29 years, the last time we had an ICC tournament in Pakistan, Afridi and Shoaib Akhtar hadn't debuted. And I think something like 65% of the population wasn't even born, right? So it just shows you how entire generation. And it was a very festive atmosphere yesterday. I know Pakistan lost, but we had a good day out. The crowd had a good day out. A full national stadium is not a very something you see very often. So it was just a good day
Yeah.
out. And I hope we have a good tournament overall, smooth from a planning and again everyone's point of view.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think this is a pretty important win. I would have loved for India to also come, especially after Pakistan went to India for the
Yeah,
World Cup. But unfortunately, politics has played a role. Having said that, like we said, I think, good place to play India and a bit of a, with a chip on your shoulder because of the choices
Yeah,
they've made. But I do hope and I'm excited for the rest of the tournament. I can't seem to decide if I want India to go far in the tournament or not because of this whole Dubai angle. It would really be a travesty if either one semi-final or the final has to be played outside Pakistan. So part of
yeah,
me really wants Pakistan to win, and part of me really, I'm backing New Zealand from this group for sure.
yeah,
So I'm hopeful that we get the semifinals and finals in Pakistan.
yeah. Good stuff. Okay, those of you watching, if you have a view on what you think our 11 should be against India, then please leave a comment. Khurram, thank you for being on.
My pleasure, Faris. Always a pleasure.
Good luck on for Sunday. And for those of you watching, we'll be back perhaps after Sunday's game. In the meantime, stay tuned to the shiny side.